foreign object, you know, because sometimes we say it's just a sexual act when it's really so much more than that.
Okay, okay. So it doesn't have to be a case where penetration comes into play.
No, because a foreign object can be used. You know, there are so many times when women go in and say, look, I've been raped, I've been abused, and it's an object that was used against them. So I would
Oh.
classify that as rape also.
Any of your guests for the last show that you had, did they get in detail as to how they were raped and by whom?
Yes, they did. I had I had one specific person I will be attending her book signing tomorrow, which is called a test turn testimony. She was raped by her father. At just age 11, she had gonorrhea, you know, and that is something that we see so much of. So it's not just rape, it's at what stage the rape takes place. And in most cases with the people that I've spoken to, it is at the age of it's a minor. They were raped as a minor.
Oh, wow. Wow. So she having a book signing tomorrow.
Yes.
So she actually she that's one way of probably overcoming that obstacle is to actually, you know, put pen to paper and tell
Yes.
her story. I
Right.
mean,
She wrote her
that
book.
that's very courageous. I just want to send shout outs to the guys who are just tuning in right about now. Shanifa, I did an interview with you about maybe over 2 months ago. And of course, you told us of your story. So thanks for tuning in. Paul C. Distance, I see you, boss. And of course, thank you for the link to Sasha. You were the one that actually, you know what I mean, lays on. And so we could get that. Charles, you're late, but you're still there. Big respect and thanks for tuning in. So Shane, I got your text, but if you look at the bottom of the screen, so Shane, there should be an option where you can actually ask to join the live. I've never joined a live, so I don't really know how the steps are. So maybe Sasha could explain to us how you do that. I know I can add somebody if I see you in the lineup. I can add you, but that's for later on. That's we have a lawyer who will be coming in after you to speak on the legal aspect of rape, and because almost in every country there's a different legal definition for rape. All right, in Jamaica, I want to talk to you now about in Jamaica. Do you think that men and boys, in terms of, you know, taught manhood, do you think that could play a role in influencing someone to pretty much commit the act, in terms of, you know, we take no for an answer and we force it onto a female and we touch them as we please, we see them and all of that, and this comes back from a culture in terms of show your manhood? Do you think that that contributes a lot in terms of, you know, in Jamaica?
Well, that's a good question, you know, and it goes back to what our men are taught as youths. And that stems from, you know, mothers are getting younger and younger, grandparents are getting younger and younger, so you find that the generation gap, you know, isn't as it used to be now. Where I think we lose is that we have a thing in Jamaica where this gallus mentality.
Right.
You know, they have enough gal and gal in a bongo is like a gallus thing that we see taking place, right? And automatically when you think of a man, you think from you have your woman and from you have a child, that makes you a man. So we define our men by in very small boxes. We put them in very small spaces, you know. And then when it comes onto the gallus culture now, that's where the sex comes in place, because, you know, they become promiscuous, right? And they're having sex all over the place and they're so advanced and they're so in it. Do they know when they hear no? Or is it that because they have been taught that way, the women, us women, are supposed to be accepting of it then, because it's a part of our culture, you know, gyalis have enough woman. So I think it could play a role. Ultimately, I think rape, you know, is a choice.
Okay, where do you think the breakdown actually began? Is it in the home? Is it outside the home? Is it in terms of the music? Is it what would you say contribute to that?
if we're to speak about the music, you know, from early out you hear in our music, you hear fire burn pan a raper man for dead. You know, that's what a lot of our DJs push out, right? Where it comes onto the home now, I think sex talk sometimes starts too late in the home because we're already exposed on the road. We're already exposed out in society, right? We're already having these conversations with our peers. The music that we're listening to in the taxis, it exposes us. So by the time our parents ready to talk about it, it done gone bad. You know, we're already out there.
So you mentioned the music, whereas in there are lyrics that would call out to citizens to attack rapists. But at the end of the day, you've heard in many cases where a lot of these entertainers or a popular figure would somewhat try to force sex onto female as well. Because we have heard where females come out and say, okay, they have been forced to have sex with an individual. So there's some kind of hypocrisy being played right there in terms of the music, one, and then you're not practicing what you preach. As I see our brethren, Paul says, it's in the society. Jamaicans on a whole, as entertainers, we know that we will say we're born in farmer, but at the end of the day, we want somebody to inform inform us of something that took place, or somebody stole something from us. So we would want them to pretty much tell us who did it. Then you have a double standard where, as in, when it comes on to sexual pleasures and what you like from what you dislike, you don't give it, but you receive it. Then you wouldn't consider yourself to be a sex freak, so to speak. I mean, I have to be, kind of editing how I speak because of Hype TV. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, I mean, you're not putting blame on the music. You're not putting blame on in terms of the household, but society on a whole. Because what really drives a society is the culture. And where would we get this practice from, or this idea from then? So if it's not in, so what is it? Is it in the movies? Is it what we see on TV in terms of cable TV? Because TVG and CVM back in the day, JBC, they never used to show these type of content. But because of the digital age now, we get cable, so we're now exposed to certain things. You said something very important. You said that to rape is a choice.
Yeah.
And you are influenced by your environment. So I don't think, is it safe to say that Jamaicans, we don't support a system where we say, okay, we will definitely defend rapists. But beneath that, under that, the undertone to that, the flip side to that is that we also have a culture that boosts a man's ego to be a gallus and to touch her. So I'm just trying to say, what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's kind of conflicting when it comes to what aspect or what area, what gray area do we find ourselves in, though?
You're absolutely right, because it is conflicting, because oftentimes the pop culture is like we glorify predatory behavior, and you're right, the movies, the music, it all goes hand in hand, it all plays a role. It all plays a role, and like I said, it comes down to choice. Some people are stronger than some, some people give in. Some people give in to the influences that are around them. And this isn't just about this topic that we're talking about now. It goes across a broad scale when it comes on to influence, what influence can push a person to do. It's not just a sexual act, if the influence of how to dress, the influence of how to do your hair, the influence of whether to take drugs, whether not to take drugs, it all ties hand in hand. But ultimately, it comes down to the choice of the individual.
Do we speak openly? And I'm talking about openly at home, parent to kid or parent to children, about sex in terms of what's right or what's wrong. Do you think that we do that a lot as Jamaicans?
No, most times when the conversation comes, it's already too late, because it's either them already have sex or they're close to it. So I don't think we have the conversation early enough. I definitely don't believe we have the conversation early enough, because you hear about Dalios, you hear, we're already exposed, So by the time our parents or our teachers think, okay, let's start the sex education, We've already been exposed. Some of us are already experimenting. You have children that start having sex. In some cases, you would consider start having sex at 14 late.
Right.
So how early or you start starting. So I don't think we start the conversation early enough. And I think I'm happy you said that, because I think a way in which we can start the conversation early is by teaching our children good touch and bad touch.
Right.
You know, if you don't want to go in depth and say, okay, this is where babies came from, and you know, all of that, you can start by teaching your children good touch, bad touch. Teach them about their body, teach them about what it is to be comfortable, what it is like to be uncomfortable. That way, now you start doing something. So even though you're not giving them the full information about sex, you're doing something for their brain. You know, you're informing them.
Right. I mean, it's like almost keeping them sheltered, and then at the end of the day, by the time they get out there, they don't know how to react in a particular situation. So it's best, I agree with you, it's best if you start teaching them, even boys, because a lot of times it's only told to the girls. And you see the amount of males who have been raped, especially by females, and rape, which that's another case, because I have a lawyer who will be talking about, you know, the legal definition of rape in Jamaica, and also I think another country, and also here in the United States. So we're going to be discussing that as well. Let me jump to a comment. Samantha says that I think it's more of educating our young men about self-control from a young age, and not about enough girl in a bungle. So I think she's referring to when you say it is a culture, it is a girl, especially boys, because it is so crazy. Because a parent, a mother, would force her son to be a gallus from him a little pitney, and then try to shelter her daughter.
Yes.
How is he going to be a gallus if he's not getting involved with females when you are trying to protect your little girl from predators or potential predators? That's what I'm saying. Jamaica is like we have one hand giving you peace and another hand is, you know, the war. I just can't understand it. Just recently, I saw a video that they recorded it of a little boy winding up and gyrating and bumping and grinding on an adult female, and she was throwing it back on boy. And I'm saying to myself, like, yo, isn't this pedophilia? Because if it was the other way around, where a grown man was bumping and grinding up on a young
girl, on a child, right?
They would go crazy. So this is a double standard in our society, and this is where we expose them to sex from a very early age.
Yes, and that goes back to my point of stating that pedophilia is embedded in our society. And when you speak about, you know, educating our boys, and when you speak about teaching our boys about they should be girls and stuff like that, that is not the case for all homes, because not all homes shelters their girls. You know, let us talk about the homes that put their girls out. Let us talk about those homes that they put their children out from a young age, because they know that that's the age that the men want, because these children are the ones that are bringing in the money. So I put out my little daughter because I know that John Tom down the road have a money, and John Tom we make me get a money. So I put out my girl child. So it plays into it. Is not only the boys, it's also for the girls. So when we're going to educate our boys about self-control, when we're going to educate our boys about all of that, we need to educate our girls as well. We need to teach them about self-esteem. You know, we need to teach them how to love themselves, because if we don't do that from within the home, the love that society is going to give them isn't necessarily the love that we want them to get. So we have to talk about that as well. There's so many flip sides to it.
I agree. If you agree, give me some thumbs up. Well, not me, but Sasha, thumbs up right now. If you agree, give us some thumbs up. And if you love it, give us some hearts. Usually my kids would do that for me, but because of the topic, I have to lock them in the room. In case you're just tuning in, and if it's your first time watching this show, this is called Val's Views Live. I'm your boy, Andrew Val, right here on Facebook every Saturday, also on Hype TV in Jamaica, How You Picture Entertainment. Speaking with Sasha-lee, social media influencer. And of course, when I say influence, it's not like I'm saying influencer, like influencer. Yes, I say an influencer on social media. She also does her shows on a Friday at 8 p.m. So y'all can check her out as well. So that's for the VVL family. And for the Sasha fans who are coming over, my name is Andrew Val, as I said before, and this is VVL. And of course, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I just touch on current issues, social issues. I touch on politics, religion, you name it. Me ever born politician on the show, yep, on a reel. And I have to be repeating myself that the views expressed on this show, they do not reflect that of Hype TV. When I say born politician, meaning that we're not literally throwing a fire on them, but we're talking up and we're speaking out and touching on topics and issues that people are afraid to. Now, I also will be having a rape survivor, my very special guest. So y'all don't want to leave. You all want to stick around to hear her story. Also, immediately after speaking with Sasha, I will be joined by a lawyer, and she'll be defining legally what is rape in different regions across the world, and also will be giving us some rape statistics across the globe. All right, so let's get back to our talk with Sasha. Thank you guys so much. All right, so I have 2 more questions before I let you go. All right.
Okay.
We discussed the pop culture, and of course, the message in the pop culture could influence, as you say, and that's how you said that it is a choice. So we're not going to blame a particular culture or a particular sector of society to say this is the reason, because at the end of the day, if it was the reason, then you'd have more rapists. And I saw a picture, and the female had it, and the only part of that picture or her statement that I would find incorrect, she says that every woman knows of a rape victim, but no man seemed to know of a rapist. I get what she's saying, and what she's saying is much right. And I think Bridget and I, we had a discussion about that. He said that it's pretty much inaccurate, and it is almost pointing finger at men to say, how is it that we don't know? You and I have had this discussion that in Jamaica we have a thing called the battery, aka train in the United States, where a young lady would see multiple men coming at her in a given day, where they all line up and they take their turns to have sex with her.
Right.
So we would think that it's against her will, and sometimes we think that she consented to this thing. Now, in Jamaica, we glorify that part of our society or a part of that subculture to say me a gallis, and it's sometimes saying that the young lady is bad. The young lady is, she likes it, and she's out of touch. She's emotionally scarred or whatever, because she was touched from she's a kid. She doesn't know how to say no or not. So here it comes again. My point. In Jamaica, this is where we glorify it. What are some of the things that you think we use to glorify rape and to even cover rape? Because once we don't rape a stranger, it won't be considered a rape. But once we force a female, it's not rape. And this is why the saying would go to say, why men, we don't know other, not other rapists, but why is it that we don't know rape?
At all, right?
Right.
So some of the things that we use to cover rape in our Jamaican society, something that we hear every single day. And I know you're wondering what that is, but before I actually tell you what it is, I will say this: rape are rape. If you don't have consent, it is rape, right? And a person who is underage cannot give you consent. A person who is under the influence cannot give you consent. And what we usually use to cover it up is she force rape. She force rape. She big in her body. If she never tell me her age, and if you see how she run, you that thinks that she's of age. Right? We use those things to almost justify the fact, and it doesn't only come from the person who does the act. Sometimes it comes from people who are backing him. We ultimately blame the female. She prime, she force rape, and then sometimes we even use it now to speak about women in a derogatory way of saying everybody run to her, everybody sitting. So
True.
you now taking advantage of her is it's almost justified because Tom, John, Harry had already been there. So
Mm-hmm.
even though Tom, John, and Harry went there by her saying yes, it doesn't make a difference if you go there by force because you're everybody's something. So those are some of the things that we used to cover it up to make it seem like not such a big deal by bashing the female and putting the female below dirt, putting them at level zero, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the way how we now justify pedophilia, as I said before, is by saying she prime, she's force ripe, you know, she look big in body, so that all makes it okay.
It's crazy because that's just the reality, and it goes back to say that it's not like we don't know a rapist because don't men don't come and advertise that, hey, I just raped XYZ down the road last night.
No.
I off Miss Matidura and going on her daughter. But
Mhm.
they'll brag about forcing sex on Sasha, grab up, groping, grab her up, you know what I mean? And spank her on the butt. And men, so it's like once it's not a stranger,
It's okay.
it's okay. But if it's a stranger, then you would have considered that rape. And that's what I'm saying. The culture is so twisted. The mindset of Jamaicans, not only the reason why I keep saying Jamaican guys is because of where I'm from, and I can only speak for Jamaicans. On a serious note, it is worldwide, but I
Yeah.
can't for another culture in another country. I mean, even here in the United States, we're living amongst more Jamaicans than Africans or Puerto Ricans. So at the end of the day, I stick to a particular culture. I stick to my people, and it happens here all the time. Even when you see a young lady in the street and you call to her, and then again, if she not give you the reaction that you anticipated, then of course you start class her and call her all sorts of names, and you name it, derogatory terms. You know what I mean? So at the end
Right.
of the day, like you're forcing something on that young lady the same way, whether you go physically or you verbally. It's abuse. And at the end of the day, we don't see it as a lot of Jamaican men, some of us, we don't see it that way. The girl style way. Oh, that girl have to go and she for ray, and you know what I mean? Because it comes back down to my final question. Do you think that as men in Jamaica or parents or the culture really, teach us to respect and value females?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, love songs teach us to respect our females because you talk about how you love them and you take care of them and stuff like that. But when you listen to certain songs and you listen to how they speak about us as women, it's as if we can be discarded very easily. It's as if we're a piece of material. We're a crop. It's like we're on a scene and we're just additional crop.
Mm.
So we're just a stuffed banana, or we're the paper apple, or we're the they don't speak of us as what we really are. And women are very important. Men came from women. So no, they don't teach us to respect. No, absolutely not. My brother and I had this discussion today, and he said no one taught him to respect women. What he
Right.
learned was the action of how he saw his mother being treated, and he didn't like it. He didn't like how his mother was being treated, and that's what curbed him away from that type of behavior. So it was almost self-taught in a way. Then, okay, I saw this happen, I didn't like it, I don't want to live like that.
Right, right,
So,
right.
no, no, we
They
don't.
don't.
No.
I agree, and I was gonna ask you, where did that culture come from? But you explained it. It's almost like what you see in your home.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and of course, because at the end of the day, even when my wife and I, we sometimes we would, be arguing, and sometimes you kind of get low, and she be like, "You remember the kids? Remember the kids?" Oh, we try our best to kind of keep it outside of that. And she always say, I want them to know how a woman should be treated, whether it's the
Yeah.
boy or the girl. And I agree. In the household, and men in several households in Jamaica, we see where the parents they argue and they fight in front of the kids, the neighbors, even if it doesn't happen inside of that household, but the neighbors, they do it openly, and we've seen it especially in the inner city. We've seen it's not like the uptown don't argue, but maybe because the yard space is so big, you can hardly
Yeah,
hear
here.
I mean, you can hardly hear, but they do argue. But because of the cluster in terms of the inner city, how the houses are being, you know, put next to each other, as you shout, you hear it across the street. So it
Right.
is something that, you know what I mean, that I think we need to educate parents on. As somebody said on the live, children having children. And that's another big issue. That's another big factor where we have to look into as well. All right. In closing, how do you think that we can fix some of these issues in Jamaica when it comes to overexposure to sex as kids? And as you say, rape is a choice. What form of materials, what form of intervention, what form of system the government, and I go back again to say the government, and I'm talking about not only the government, but public and private sectors, what part do they need to play? What are some of the
Right.
changes?
Firstly, let me say this. I will speak about what we can do on a national scale, even though I believe it starts in the home. And I don't really speak to the government when it comes on to certain things like that, because at the end of the day, I never young government make baby. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I never government breed you.
Right.
So
Right.
it starts in the home. But what I do think we can do is each one teach one. I think we can use education. And when I'm not talking about math, social studies, science, or nothing like that. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about education, right? When you educate or say, for example, you have young mothers, young teenagers just have a baby, right? There should be somewhere that they can go, somebody who they can talk to, because there's no book written on how to be the perfect parent. There's no book written telling you that, okay, you start having this conversation at this age, and everybody's life is different. But if we create a safe space where struggling mothers or young mothers can go and have these conversations with somebody who's versed in the area, you know, then maybe they can apply back that to their homes, in
Right.
how
Right.
they raise their children, in how they educate their children, you know, and it goes back to teaching our children values, morals, you know. We speak self-worth, we speak those things. It starts in the home. But how I believe the government can assist is what I basically just said. Create a space where people can speak to others in that field, whether it be social work or people in childcare, whatever,
Right.
where
Right.
they
Right.
can get advice to then
Mm-hmm.
apply in the home.
Right, definitely. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. And of course, we're not trying to exclude the government, because at the end of the day, as I said, private and public sectors, those are the driving forces behind a society. Straight up, you know what I
Right.
mean? Are them are what keep the economy going. So I'm saying find an avenue, find a platform where you can inject, you can pretty much invest. And, you know, as you rightly say, and as many others have been saying on the live, Jamaica, we need more social workers. When we say social workers, we need social workers who take their job seriously, play their
Seriously.
role seriously, not just go in there, talk to a kid today or talk to a parent. And as my brother Jeremy, and big respect, of course, you don't know, he says that fathers too, we need to talk to fathers as well, because it's always, the burden is always on the females in terms of mothers. Oh, it's up to the mothers to teach their kids this. It's up to the mothers to teach their kids that. But I think parents on a whole, collectively, I agree with you. And thank you guys so much for stopping by, and thank you for your input. Just plug your show once again for the VVL family who haven't really seen. Oh, so you know, somebody said to me that you went, one of your videos went viral when you bash, not, you didn't bash Miss Donna, but you made a video. You made a video pretty much. You and I would be on the same page when it comes to, you know, standing up for the Trishana young lady.
For the
I don't
underdog.
I don't